Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's story takes us deep into a high-stakes operation that reads like a Hollywood thriller, but this time it's real. The United States Navy and the FBI have just pulled off one of the most astonishing joint missions in modern law enforcement history, dismantling a $5 billion methamphetamine syndicate that had spread its web across the oceans, continents, and even into the darkest corners of global trade. What started as a mysterious trail of suspicious cargo shipments turned into a full-blown international pursuit that exposed the scale, sophistication, and audacity of modern drug trafficking operations. What's most incredible is how the Navy's maritime intelligence and the FBI cyber and field units worked hand in hand, forming an alliance that managed to cripple an empire once thought untouchable. It all began months ago when naval intelligence picked up unusual activity from a series of cargo ships operating under flags of convenience. Those are ships registered in countries with looser maritime regulations, often used by smugglers to disguise ownership. These ships were moving between East Asia, the Pacific Islands, and the west coast of the United States. On the surface, everything appeared normal. They carried containers of electronics, textiles, or agricultural goods. But when a U.S. Navy P-8 Poseidon surveillance aircraft spotted one of these vessels behaving erratically off the coast of Guam, alarms went off. It was changing routes without notice, turning off its transponders, and conducting mid-ocean transfers with smaller boats at night, all classic signs of maritime smuggling. The Navy intercepted encrypted communications suggesting that these ships were part of a much larger network controlled by a shadowy syndicate operating out of Southeast Asia. But it wasn't until the FBI joined the operation that the full scale came into focus. Agents traced the communications to a web of shell companies, offshore accounts, and warehouses spread across 5 countries. The masterminds behind the syndicate weren't just traffickers, they were logistics experts, hackers, and financiers working with military-grade precision. What they were moving wasn't just any narcotic, it was methamphetamine on an industrial scale, worth billions of dollars in street value. Inside the FBI cybercrime division, analysts began piecing together digital breadcrumbs that pointed to a covert network of brokers using encrypted messaging apps and cryptocurrency payments to move product, cash, and chemicals. The FBI data teams found that the group had hacked into legitimate shipping systems to create fake manifests, making their cargo appear perfectly legal. But when agents cross-referenced shipping container IDs, they found discrepancies that couldn't be explained away. The Navy provided satellite imagery showing containers being switched mid-voyage, while drones captured suspicious offloads near uninhabited islands. It was clear the traffickers were using the ocean as their hiding place, and they were very, very good at it. On board the ships, the setup was ingenious. Engineers had built false bulkheads, secret compartments inside fuel tanks, and even disguised entire decks beneath layers of cargo. One ship, when finally seized, revealed an entire meth lab built within its engine room, complete with industrial mixers, chemical tanks, and air filtration systems to mask the smell. The crew, mostly unaware of the true cargo, had been hired through maritime job agencies, believing they were working normal freight routes. But behind the scenes, a tight circle of operators controlled everything remotely. The breakthrough came when an undercover FBI agent posing as a buyer managed to infiltrate the syndicate's distribution network. His cover operation led to encrypted communications with a top-tier broker, who unknowingly revealed the schedule for a massive shipment bound for Los Angeles. The meth, over 10 tons of it, was packed inside industrial-grade generators, each weighing several tons. On paper, it was legitimate cargo, fully cleared through customs and accompanied by impeccable documentation. But what the traffickers didn't know was that the Navy had already deployed a SEAL reconnaissance team and special agents aboard surveillance vessels shadowing the freighter. When the ship entered U.S. waters, the Joint Task Force launched Operation Deep Tide. Under the cover of darkness, Navy SEALs boarded the vessel in a high-risk nighttime insertion. What they found shocked even veteran agents. Entire sections of the ship were retrofitted to conceal methamphetamine packed in vacuum-sealed bricks, hidden behind reinforced walls that required hydraulic tools to breach. In total, they seized drugs with a street value exceeding $5 billion, one of the largest narcotics seizures in history. The interior of the FBI Operations Center erupted in controlled chaos that night. Screens lit up with live drone feeds, encrypted comms buzzed nonstop, and federal prosecutors were already preparing international warrants. The syndicate's financial network began collapsing as soon as agents moved in on key suspects. Bank accounts froze, cryptocurrency wallets were traced, and within hours, coordinated raids began in Los Angeles, Manila, Bangkok, and Rotterdam. Dozens of suspects were arrested: chemists, brokers, and even corrupt port officials who had turned a blind eye for years. What made this operation so extraordinary wasn't just the scale of the seizure, but the way technology and traditional military discipline merged seamlessly. The Navy provided advanced radar and signal intelligence capabilities, while the FBI handled the digital side, tracing funds, decrypting communications, and coordinating legal frameworks across multiple countries. It was a perfect example of modern interagency cooperation, where the battlefield isn't just on the ground or sea, but in cyberspace and logistics chains. Behind the scenes, the syndicate had been producing meth in hidden superlabs across the Golden Triangle, the infamous border region between Myanmar, Laos, and Thailand. Using precursor chemicals smuggled through industrial supply routes, they created a highly pure form of crystal meth that dominated markets across Asia and the Pacific. When Asian authorities began tightening enforcement, the syndicate shifted its operations toward maritime trafficking, taking advantage of global shipping networks and the chaos of pandemic-era trade disruptions. The oceans had become their new smuggling lanes, and for years they stayed one step ahead of everyone. The turning point came when U.S. Naval analysts noticed patterns in satellite data ships, making unusual detours into international waters, rendezvousing with small vessels registered under obscure flags. Using advanced AI-driven anomaly detection systems, the Navy's intelligence units began mapping the movements of hundreds of ships at once, identifying clusters of suspicious activity. One ship after another was tracked, leading them closer to the syndicate's command center, a high-tech logistics hub in the Philippines disguised as a shipping consultancy. That's where the FBI field team moved in, raiding the offices and seizing servers filled with shipment records, coded communications, and digital ledgers that tied the network to drug financiers in Hong Kong and Australia. The evidence was overwhelming. Hidden within encrypted spreadsheets were details of chemical suppliers, payment chains, and laundering routes through offshore investment firms. Every time a shipment moved, an automated signal went out to cryptocurrency mixers that dispersed payments across hundreds of wallets. It's a sophisticated attempt to make tracing impossible. But the FBI blockchain experts methodically reconstructed the transactions, tracing them back to central nodes connected to known criminal enterprises. When they combined that with naval intelligence about vessel movements, they had everything they needed to launch the operation. Performance-wise, the coordination between agencies was flawless. The Navy's ability to operate in international waters without raising suspicion gave the FBI the time it needed to build airtight cases. As one agent described it, it was like watching a chess game played across the globe, and every move had to be perfect. Months of surveillance, data gathering, and covert monitoring culminated in a synchronized strike that dismantled the syndicate's hierarchy in a single night. The safety aspect of the operation cannot be overstated. Boarding a vessel potentially carrying armed smugglers and volatile chemicals is no small task. SEAL teams underwent weeks of specialized training to handle hazardous environments. The risk of explosion, chemical leaks, or ambush was always present, but thanks to the meticulous planning and coordination, no lives were lost during the seizures. The Navy ensured containment protocols were in place, and specialized hazmat teams were ready to neutralize any chemical threats on board. One of the most unique aspects of this operation was how it revealed the evolution of global narcotics trafficking. Gone are the days when drug lords relied solely on clandestine airstrips or jungle labs. The new cartels operate like multinational corporations, using legitimate business structures, digital currencies, and AI tools to optimize their logistics. This syndicate wasn't just a gang, it was an organization with its own R&D division, cybersecurity team, and investment arms. By bringing down this operation, the Navy and FBI didn't just seize drugs, they disrupted a business model that could have reshaped the global narcotics trade. The syndicate's leaders were not ordinary criminals. Among those captured were former shipping executives, tech consultants, and chemical engineers. They had exploited weak links in global trade, from underfunded customs offices to outdated tracking systems. Their plan was to flood markets with ultra-pure meth while laundering profits through renewable energy projects and digital startups. But their downfall came from their overconfidence in technology. They believed encryption made them invisible. What they didn't realize was that U.S. intelligence had developed new decryption capabilities that turned their own tools against them. After the arrests, agents discovered that the syndicate's command structure was decentralized, operating through a franchise system that allowed regional operators to act independently while sending profits to central accounts. This made the network resilient until the Joint Task Force simultaneously dismantled every branch. In one sweep, they not only took down the distribution, but also the production hubs, financial channels, and cyber infrastructure that supported it. The price of the operation was immense, not in money, but in manpower, planning, and diplomacy. Coordinating across 5 countries required months of negotiation, intelligence sharing, and covert diplomacy. But in the end, the payoff was historic. Over $5 billion worth of narcotics were seized, 87 suspects were arrested, and dozens of corrupt officials were exposed. The success of this mission sent a shockwave through the underworld, with rival syndicates scrambling to erase their digital footprints and reroute shipments. For the U.S. Navy, this operation proved that maritime dominance isn't just about warships and weapons. It's about controlling the flow of illegal commerce that fuels instability. For the FBI, it reaffirmed that the future of law enforcement lies in hybrid warfare, where cybercrime, financial intelligence, and field operations intersect. Together, they set a new precedent for how to combat transnational crime in an age where data moves faster than ships. As news of the bust spread, global agencies began reaching out to replicate the model. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime praised the coordination as a template for the 21st century fight against organized crime. And while the public saw only the headlines, the dramatic seizure, the piles of drugs, and the mugshots behind the scenes was a testament to years of investment in intelligence, surveillance, and interagency trust. In the aftermath, forensic accountants began following the money trails that survived. Some of the funds had already been invested in real estate, art, and even tech startups, but asset recovery teams were determined to claw back every dollar connected to the network. Meanwhile, Navy researchers studied how smugglers had modified their ships, using that information to strengthen future inspections and develop AI systems that can detect altered ship hulls or weight discrepancies automatically. The operation's success also carried a message to both allies and adversaries. The U.S. can project power not just militarily, but through intelligence fusion and law enforcement precision. It showed that no matter how complex or globalized a criminal network becomes, there's always a way to expose its weak link, whether that's a corrupted file, a misplaced payment, or a careless radio signal at sea. In the end, the joint effort between the Navy and the FBI wasn't just about taking down a syndicate, it was about protecting global commerce, saving lives, and reaffirming that justice can still prevail in a world dominated by shadows. The lessons learned from this case will shape future operations for years to come. The traffickers believed the ocean made them invisible, but as it turns out, the ocean itself became their downfall, because that's where the U.S. Navy reigns supreme and where no secret can hide forever. And so, what began as a trail of suspicious cargo ships ended as one of the most extraordinary victories in modern law enforcement. The partnership between America's defenders at sea and its investigators on land has proven once again that when intelligence, technology, and determination combine, even the most elusive empires of crime can crumble in the blink of an eye.